The ocean stretches like an endless slate, gray and unyielding under a sky bruised with the promise of storm. Waves heave in slow, deliberate swells, each one carrying the weight of a world at war. Beneath this surface, invisible to the convoys plodding eastward from America, glides U-1223, a predator forged in the black heart of Teal shipyards, her hull a needle-thin shadow slicing through the cold currents at periscope depth. Inside, the air is thick with the metallic tang of machine oil and salt sweat. The boat hums faintly, electric motors whispering against the sea's vast murmur. It's been 3 days since they left the Wolfpack's embrace, slipping away to hunt alone in this desolate quadrant. The crew moves with the practiced rhythm of men who have made the abyss their home. 29 souls crammed into 240 feet of riveted steel, where every breath is rationed, every sound a potential betrayer. At the conning tower's edge, though submerged now, stands Oberleutnant Karl Renner, 29 years old, his face a map of quiet resolve etched by 2 years of patrols. Tall for a submariner, with the lean frame of a man who has stared too long into the green void of the periscope, Renner grips the ladder rungs as if anchoring himself to the boat's unyielding spine. His eyes, sharp and gray as Baltic slate, scan the dim red glow of the control room below. He is brilliant in the way of engineers who dream in vectors and currents, methodical, loyal to the doctrine that has carried the Kriegsmarine this far. To Renner, the U-boat is not just a weapon. It is an extension of will, a silent fist clenched against the Allies' bloated empire. Surfacing in 10, Herr Kaliu, calls the helmsman from below, his voice muffled by the hiss of compressed air valves. Renner nods, saying nothing. Words are currency in a boat like this, best saved for orders or the rare jest that keeps morale from fraying like old rope. As the boat breaches, water cascades off her deck in silvery sheets, and the diesels cough to life with a guttural roar that drowns the waves. Renner climbs to the bridge, the salt wind whipping his oilskin coat. He lights a cigarette, the match flaring brief and defiant against the dawn. From here, the Atlantic seems infinite, a sanctuary where the hunter becomes the unseen god. In the months since the new year, U-boats like his have reaped a grim harvest. March alone saw over 500,000 tons of Allied shipping sent to the seabed, convoys SC-121 and HX-228 gutted by Wolfpacks under Admiral's precise commands. Renner's own tally stands at 7, freighters mostly, their hulls crumpling like tin under his eel's kiss. Each success reinforces the creed. Stealth is our sword, silence our shield. Back below, in the radio shack, a coffin nest of valves and dials wedged amidships, Matrosengefreiter Otto Hahn hunches over his Morse key. At 22, Hahn is the boat's voice to the world above, his fingers dancing across the brass lever like a pianist coaxing secrets from ivory. But where Renner sees precision, Hahn feels the weight of whispers. Young and wiry, with a face shadowed by perpetual stubble and eyes that dart like minnows, he is superstitious in the old Prussian way, crossing himself before each transmission, murmuring to Sankt Nepomuk, patron of bridges and the unspoken. The radio room smells of ozone and warm bakelite, the receiver's dull buzz a constant companion, like the sea's own heartbeat echoing through the hull. Hahn adjusts his headphones, the leather cups pressing against his ears like cold hands. Static crackles, a white noise veil over the ether. He has transmitted nothing today. Renner's orders are clear. Radio silence unless contact is made. But the doctrine demands it eventually. A curt signal, a short burst to BDU in Paris reporting position, fuel, torpedoes. Admiral Dönitz's hand, iron-fisted even from afar, insists on it. The pack hunts as one, Dönitz broadcasts in his morale dispatches. Eyes open, mouth shut, until the moment calls. Hahn envies the older hands who treat the key like a rifle trigger. Pull, report, vanish. To him, each dot dash is a thread tugged in the dark, inviting something unseen to follow. Hahn, anything? Renner's voice cuts through the intercom, calm as Baltic ice. 9, Herr Kalu, ether's clean as a nun's conscience. Hahn forces a chuckle, but his fingers tremble on the key. Clean today. But last patrol. U-515 signal cut mid-burst. Gone like smoke. He shakes it off. Superstition is for landsmen. Out here it's discipline that survives. Renner descends from the bridge as the boat dives again, the klaxon wailing its two-tone lament. Water floods the ballast tanks with a gurgle that vibrates through the deck plates, and U-12-223 settles into her element, 240 feet down, where pressure claws at the hull like impatient fingers. The control room settles into routine. Watch officers plotting fixes on grease pencil charts, engineers nursing the diesel's ghosts in the electric hum. Renner pauses at the attack periscope, twisting the eyepiece with surgical care. The scope's prism whirs softly, painting the ocean's underbelly in ghostly monochrome. Bearing 270, Herr Kalu, reports the hydrophone operator, a squat Bavarian named Muller, whose ears are tuned finer than a watchmaker's. Freighter, single screw, 5 knots, maybe 6, alone. Renner's lips curve faintly, not a smile, but the ghost of one. Alone. The Allies' folly, scattering their merchantmen like chaff despite the warnings. He straightens, his voice a blade unsheathed. Right standard rudder, mate your depth 150, load tubes 1 through 4. The boat banks gently, her planes biting the water as she ghosts toward the prey. The crew responds without haste, torpedo mates wrestling the 533mm eels into their racks with grunts and curses, the cook ladling out ersatz coffee from a dented urn. In this moment, faith blooms like bioluminescence in the dark. They are invisible, untouchable. The ocean, vast and indifferent, cloaks them. No sonar ping betrays their approach. No aircraft's shadow crosses the waves. It's the old way, the way of Jutland and Scapa Flow, refined in the wolf-pack's howl. Discipline, hold course, hold breath. Silence, no exhaust plumes, no wake to betray. Renner believes it utterly, as he believes in the Führer's vision of a 1,000-year Reich fed by Atlantic bounty. We are the tide's unseen hand, he thinks, turning the scales with whispers. The attack unfolds with mechanical grace. At 800 meters, Renner raises the periscope, a brief flash, 10 seconds only. The freighter materializes, a Liberty ship, her Liberty silhouette bloated with grain or oil, plowing oblivious eastward. No escort in sight. The Allies' hunter-killer groups are stretched thin, chasing ghosts in the mid-ocean gaps. Solution good, Renner murmurs. Fire 1, fire 2. Ripple salvo. Compressed air hisses foot, and the torpedoes leap away, their gyros whining into the blue. The boat turns hard to starboard, diving to evade the inevitable counter. Seconds stretch to eternity. Then muffled thunder rolls through the hull, one hit forward, the bow erupting in a boil of fire and steel, the second amidships, shearing the spine. The freighter lists, her screws thrashing air as she founders. Cheers ripple through the control room, restrained, professional, the sound of men who know victory is fleeting. Well done, Renner says, clapping Miller's shoulder. Surface at dusk for the report. Hahn, prepare the curt signal. Hahn nods from his shack, but his stomach knots. Another thread. He keys in the code. Position grid AJ-27, 1 kill confirmed, tubes reloaded, fuel ample. 22 seconds of Morse, encrypted in the Enigma's labyrinth, brief as a gasp, gone before echoes fade. He hits send, the transmitter's pulse, a fleeting spark in the void. Static returns, swallowing it whole. On the bridge that evening, as diesel fumes mingle with the sea's brine, Renner logs the kill in his Kriegstagebuch. The crew gathers for the ritual. Sauerkraut from jars, black bread rationed thin. Stories flow, tales of Preen's Scapa triumph, of Lawson's Arctic hauls. Otto Hahn joins late, his face pale under the bridge lights. You look like you've seen a ghost, Junge, teases a torpedo man. Just the sea's faces, Hahn mutters. Always watching. Renner overhears, arching a brow. The sea doesn't watch, Hahn, it hides us, remember that. But in the quiet of his bunk later, as the boat runs surfaced under stars like shrapnel, Renner pores over the latest BDU dispatches. Casualties mount. U-384 depth charged off Iceland last week, her signal intercepted mid-report. Coincidence, the admirals say. Allied luck, Enigma's veil holding. Yet the pattern nags, boats that call home vanish. Allies blind as bats, Renner reminds himself. We are the night. Across the Atlantic in bunkers from Reykjavik to Newfoundland, antennas like skeletal fingers claw the sky. Operators hunch over cathode tubes, their scopes flickering with ghosts of their own. But in the steel tomb of U-1223, such shadows are dismissed. The crew sleeps in shifts, lulled by the diesel's steady thrum, dreaming of ports in France where wine flows and fear forgets its name. They are masters of the unseen, guardians of the Reich's lifeline. The rules of the game, hunt silent, strike swift, have not changed. What they couldn't see was already listening. The air here is dry as bone dust, laced with the faint ozone bite of overheating valves and the chalky residue of endless erasers. No salt or sweat, no creak of hull plates under pressure, just the steady tick of clocks synchronized to Greenwich and the muffled thump of typewriters from adjacent huts. This is the nerve center of the unseen war, where code breakers wrestle Enigma's shadows. But deeper still, in a windowless annex, lies the true ear of the beast. The High-Frequency Direction Finding Station, or HFDF, Huff-Duff to the technicians who birthed it. Lieutenant Nora Blake, 26, sits at a console that resembles a mad organist's dream. Oscilloscopes pulsing green traces across black screens, goniometers spinning like dervishes, antennas feeds snaking from rooftop arrays to this buried sanctum. Nora is slight, her RAF uniform tailored sharp against the curves that speak of pre-war dances in Cambridge ballrooms. Her hair, auburn and pinned practical, frames a face marked by quiet intensity, eyes the color of storm-tossed tea, hands steady as a surgeon's despite the tremor of moral weight she carries alone. She is no cryptographer, no bomb wrangler. She is a hunter with mathematics, one of a cadre of women, WRNS and WAFs, recruited for ears attuned to the invisible. To Nora, the radio spectrum is a haunted gallery. Morse pulses like footsteps in fog. The room hums with controlled chaos. 5 operators at similar stations, their headphones clamped like vices, plotting bearings on Admiralty charts pinned with colored pins. A supervisor, a mustachioed RN lieutenant named Hargreaves, paces the aisle, his pipe smoke curling like interrogative fingers. "Steady on, ladies," he murmurs, voice low to not disturb the ether's fragile song. "The convoy's counting on us." Nora adjusts her tuning knob, the receiver's bandwidth narrowing to the Kriegsmarine slice of 6 to 8 megahertz. Static hisses, a cosmic rain, indifferent. She thinks of her brother, lost on HMS Hood 2 years prior, his last letter folded in her billet drawer. The sea's a sly one, Nor. Listens more than it speaks. Irony that. The Huff-Duff system, born in 1942 from Watson Watt's radar wizardry and refined in secret labs at TRE Malvern, turns listening into lethal precision. No longer must allies chase U-boat wakes or guess from Enigma cribs. Now, a submarine's transmission, however brief, betrays its azimuth. A single-loop antenna, rotatable and phase-sensitive, captures the signal's plane wave, resolving direction to within 2 degrees. Multiply by 3 stations, triangulate, position fixed in seconds. It began as a whisper of innovation. In 1941, with wolf packs gnawing the convoy flanks, Churchill demanded eyes in the dark. Enter Robert Watson Watt, the chain-home radar's father, who adapted his cathode ray magic to high-frequency beams. Prototypes dotted the coast, at Ventnor, Startpoint, Wick, each a Y station, ears pricked for the U-boat's cry. By 43, the network spiderwebbed. 20 shore sites from Land's End to the Shetlands, mobiles on Flower-class corvettes, even aircraft with whip antennas. The Ghost Network, they called it in hushed briefings. Not a single machine, but a symphony of synchronized fixes, data wired to Coastal Command's plot rooms in faster than a courier's sprint. Nora's screen flickers, a blip faint as a heartbeat. She keys her log, possible Kurtz signal bearing 247 true. Strength 3. Her pencil scratches grid references, the chart's latitude lines a lattice for death. Not yet, she thinks. Patience is the kill. Across from her, Sub-Lieutenant Elsie Thorne, a freckled Scot with ink-stained fingers, mirrors the motion. "Got a shadow on 7.2, ma'am," Elsie whispers, faint but rhythmic. "Enigma traffic." Nora leans over, her scope syncing. Dots and dashes emerge from the noise. Dot-dit. A U-boat's weather report, perhaps, or a position ping to BDU. Log it, alert the plot. The signal fades as quickly as it bloomed. 20 seconds, the Germans' doctrinal brevity. But in that gasp, the bearing locks. From U-1223, 400 miles west, her antenna a unwitting beacon. The Morse key clicks silent now, Hahn's fingers lingering on the brass as if to retract the pulse. The transmitter cools with a faint tick, its heat bleeding into the already stifling air. He wipes sweat from his brow, the rag damp with more than humidity, fears oily residue. Gone, he tells himself, swallowed by the waves. But the static returns not as comfort, but accusation. A low growl, like the sea murmuring back. From the control room, Renner's voice crackles over the intercom. "Hahn, confirm receipt. BDU's not blind tonight." "Affirmative, Herr Kaliu," Hahn replies, forcing steadiness. No echoes. Clean send. He doesn't mention the chill that followed, the way the receiver seemed to listen. Superstition, yes, but the boat feels it too. In the mess, whispers circulate. U-68's last patrol, her CO cursing the Flustern defined, the whispering enemy, before a Sunderland's bombs found her. Coincidence? Or something in the wires? Renner at the chart table plots his next leg, south toward the choke point off Halifax, where stragglers from HX convoys tempt fate. The kill log grows, 8 now, with the Liberty's carcass feeding the currents. His crew toasts with schnapps rations, the burn a fleeting fire against the cold. To the shadows, Renner toasts, glass raised. May they cloak us eternal. The men echo it, but Otto Hahn hangs back, nursing his cup. His eyes flick to the radio bulkhead where dials glow like watchful eyes. Eternal? Or until the next call? Admiral Dönitz's edicts demand it. Daily ETA's torpedo tallies fuel states. Centralized control, the Wolfpack's spine. Without it, chaos. Boats adrift, targets uncoordinated. But lately, the replies come sparse, laced with urgency. Radio discipline absolute. Allies honing their hunt. Renner dismisses it as propaganda ballast. Enigma unbreakable. Distance our ally. The fix arrives via teleprinter, clacking T's spelling coordinates in Admiralty code. Hargreaves decodes it swift, pinning a red thread across the master chart, a vast North Atlantic mural. Convoys blue lines weaving east, U-boat sightings red webs closing in. Grid AJ-27, he announces. Bearing correlates with SC-128's flank. Signal strength suggests surface transmit, reckless. Nora enters, log in hand, her steps measured on the linoleum. The room swells with brass, a coastal command wing commander, pipe clenched, a Wren plotter adjusting acetate overlays. Triangulation viable? The wing commander asks, voice gravel from chain-smoked Gauloises. 3 stations confirmed, sir, Nora replies, unfolding her sheet. Vent Nor at 247, Wick at 312, mobile off Iceland at 289. Error margin under 10 miles. Boat's been vocal, curt signal likely reporting a kill. Murmurs ripple. The chart tells the tale. In February, Huff-Duff nailed U-442 off the Azores, her burst transmission drawing HMS Starling like a moth to flame. Depth charges walked the grid with arithmetic grace, the corvette's Aztec pinging the death knell. By April, the network claimed a dozen. 24% of losses, post-war tallies would whisper, not from torpedoes or bombs, but from the sin of speaking. Vector a liberator, the commander decides, and alert the convoy OC. If it's Wolfpack bait, we cut the line. Nora nods, but her gaze lingers on the pin, a steel fish, 29 men aboard, their lives reduced to vectors and veins. Do they know, she wonders, that their voices echo back as chains? She has no face for them. Only the pulse on her scope, the math that multiplies fixes into fate. Guilt is a private tide, ebbing in the small hours when she replays the intercepts, fragments of home, Grusa and Mutti, before the bombs erase them. It's clean work, Hargreaves tells the women over tea. Saves 100 sailors per U-boat. Clean, yes, like a ledger balanced in blood. The boat runs deep, 200 feet, electric drive a subdued purr against the thermocline's veil. Renner stands watch, periscope stowed, hydrophones his only eye. Miller's headphones relay the sea's symphony. Distant propellers, whale song, the ocean's indifferent chorus. No escorts yet, no ping to shatter the peace. Quiet as a confessional, Miller quips, but his grin falters. Last night's transmit nags them all, unspoken. Hahn slinks in, bearing coffee, bitter sludge from scorched beans. Her kalu, BDU silence holds, no orders inbound. Renner sips, the warmth a lie against the chill seeping through his bones. Routine, he thinks. The ether's vast, our whispers lost. But in Berlin's Wolfschanze, Dönitz pours over similar voids, returns down 30%, boats overdue. Tighten the leash, he orders his staff, voice a whip crack. No transmits without my mark. Yet doctrine binds him too, centralized, unyielding. The pack must sing to hunt as one. Across the waves, Nora's Liberator lifts from Prestwick, its lee light probing the dark, radar sweeping the grid. No contact tonight, the U-boats dive timely, her silence a fragile armor. But the network waits, antennas attuned, scopes hungry. In bunkers from Gander to Gibraltar, operators mirror Nora's vigil. A chain of unseen sentinels, their calm hum the counterpoint to the U-boat's frantic pulse. The parallel holds, fragile as glass. Germans waiting for orders from a god who demands their voice. Allies waiting for that voice to betray. Both sides adrift in the same sea, one cloaked in faith, the other in figures. Renner dreams of Kiel's lights, Nora of a post-war where scopes gather dust. Neither knows the other's face, only the signal that bridges them. Thread of fate, spun from copper and code. In 20 seconds, a voice could summon its own destruction. The boat idles at 150 feet, her electric motors a subdued throb that vibrates through the deck like a distant migraine. Red battle lanterns cast long shadows across the riveted bulkheads, turning faces into masks of hollowed resolve. The air hangs heavy, stale with the reek of unwashed bodies, diesel exhaust seeping from vents, and the faint, acrid tang of fear that no one names. It's been 4 days since the last kill, the Liberty ship's ghost still fresh in the logbook, but the sea has turned miserly. No contacts, no stragglers, just the endless patrol grid AJ-27. A square of ocean mapped in grease pencil and grim expectation. Oberleutnant Karl Renner stands at the chart table, dividers in hand, tracing the convoy routes like veins on a dying map. His uniform, once crisp, clings damp to his frame. A faint stubble shadows his jaw, the mark of a man who shaves only for morale's sake. At 29, he commands with the quiet authority of one who has buried friends at sea. U-552's CO last summer. A depth charge rattle that shook the faith from his bones. But doubt is a luxury. Doctrine is the anchor. Position report at 2,000 hours, he announces, voice even as a leveled torpedo tube. Hahn, stand by for Kurt signal. Grid, fuel status, no contacts. Keep it under 30 seconds. From the radio shack, Otto Hahn's reply crackles faint over the intercom. Jawohl, Herr Kalu. Key primed. But his hands, calloused from months of tapping fate into brass, hesitate on the transmitter switch. The shack is a sweatbox, dials glowing like embers in a dying fire, the receiver's speaker hissing white noise that mocks with its emptiness. Hahn crosses himself, quick, furtive, muttering to the patron of confessions. One burst, in and out. The sea's too big for echoes. Yet the pattern haunts him. U-384 signal last week, clipped mid-dash, followed by radio silence eternal. Whispers in the mess call it the curse. Radios that call home invite the devil's reply. Superstition, Renner would say. Hahn knows better. It's the sea's old trick, turning whispers to nooses. The boat's routine grinds on. Torpedo mates polish eels in the forward room, their rags whispering against oiled casings. Engineers in the motor space nurse batteries that whine like weary beasts. Miller, the hydrophone op, slouches at his station, cups clamped over ears, listening to the ocean's indifferent ballad. Thermoclines murmuring, distant biologics clicking like castanets. Nothing but ghosts, Herr Kalu, he reports, voice laced with the boredom that breeds complacency. Renner nods, but his eyes flick to the depth gauge, 150 feet, safe from aircraft, deep enough for the periscope's sly peak. Surfacing, Renner orders. The klaxon bleats, valves hiss, and the boat rises with a groan of protesting water. Breaching the swell, she sniffs the night air, diesels rumbling to life in a belch of blue smoke. On the bridge, Renner scans the horizon through binoculars. Black sea meeting blacker sky, stars pricked like shrapnel wounds. No flares, no searchlights. The Allies sleep. Or so the doctrine promises. Below, Hahn keys the burst. Dots and dashes in Enigma's cipher, a 22-second exhalation of position and plea. AJ-27, fuel 70%, tubes full. Request Wolfpack rendezvous. The transmitter pulses, antenna trailing like a spider's silk from the periscope sheath. Static reclaims the ether, the send logged in Hahn's trembling script. Back in the control room, the crew shifts uneasily. A card game breaks in the junior officer's quarters. SK at silent, bets and cigarettes. But glances dart to the bulkhead, as if the radio might cough up retribution. Renner descends, shaking salt from his coat. Dive in 5, he says, consulting his watch. All hands, routine sweep. The boat submerges smooth as a sigh, settling into the green embrace. Minutes tick by, 5, then 8. Miller stiffens at his station. Herr Kalu screws multiple, bearing 110, closing fast. Destroyers by the beat, 4 blades each. Renner's head snaps up, blood draining to steel calm. Depth? Speed? 100 meters out, 20 knots. Hydroset active, pings inbound. The first ping strikes like a hammer on anvil. A high-pitched crack echoing through the hull, the sea turning accusatory. The boat quivers, depth charges not yet, but the sonar's interrogative wail painting them in sound. Renner grabs the ladder rung, mind racing vectors. From grid edge to here, impossible. No wake trailed, no visual contact, yet escorts materialize like phantoms from the night. Right full rudder, battle stations, rig for depth charge. Alarms shriek, red lights bathing the chaos in crimson. Men scramble, hatch dogs clanging shut, damage control parties hauling hoses, the cook ditching his pot for a wrench. Hahn bursts from his shack, face ashen, headphones dangling like a noose. They came with the signal, he gasps, eyes wild. 8 minutes, how? Coincidence, Renner snaps, though the word tastes like ash. Allies on patrol. Steady on course 270, depth 200. But denial fractures as the pings multiply. Crack, crack, crack. The destroyer's astic blooms, resolving U-1223's silhouette in acoustic shadow. The boat dives hard, planes biting, compressed air venting in urgent bursts. Pressure builds, creaks from the hull plates, a reminder of the sea's impatient crush. HMS Fury leads the hunter-killer group, her pennant fluttering defiant against the spray-whipped wind. A V&W-class destroyer, refitted with Huff-Duff arrays fore and aft, she cuts the waves at flank speed, her sisters Eclipse and Grenville fanning out in triangular vigil. On Fury's bridge, fogged with spray and cigarette haze, Commander Ellis Hargreaves, no relation to the Bletchley lieutenant, but fate's wry joke, squints through the rangefinder. At 42, Hargreaves is a salt-crusted veteran of the Barents, his face a ledger of scars from Jervis Bay's pyre. The fix came hot from the Ghost Network. Ventnor's bearing locked at 247, corroborated by Gander's 289 and a Corvette's mobile at 312. Triangulation precise to 5 miles. U-1223's burst transmission a flare in the dark. Y station nailed it again, Hargreaves mutters to his first lieutenant, a lanky Welshman named Davies. 22 seconds on the air and here we are. Bloody miracle. Davies nods, plotting the intercept on a damp chart. Huff-Duff's no miracle, sir. Math. Signal plane hits the loop, goniometer spins the azimuth. 3 cuts and we've got the bastard cold. The system, installed fleet-wide since January, turns every U-boat radio check into a suicide note. No Enigma break needed, just the physics of propagation, Watson-Watt's legacy rendering the Kriegsmarine stealth a joke. Astic operators below decks relay contacts, echo strong, range 2,000 yards, diving hard. Fire pattern alpha, Hargreaves orders. 10 charges, shallow to deep, walk 'em in. Hedgehogs whump from the forward throwers, 24 projectiles arcing into the night, their splashes merging with the rain. Seconds later, the first depth charges plunge. Boom, 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 geysers erupting like vengeful spouts, the sea boiling white under starlight. The world shudders. The first charges detonate 50 meters off, muffled thunder rolling through the water, hull groaning as shockwaves flex the plates. Lights flicker. A bulb shatters in the motor room, sparks dancing like fireflies in oil. Renner braces at the periscope well, shouting over the din. Hold steady, counterflood auxiliary. But the sea betrays, leaks spring at welds, seawater hissing in, the bilge pump whining futile. Crewmen cling to stanchions, faces slick with sweat and terror. A young machinist's mate, Fritsch, 19 and green as spring kelp, vomits into a bucket, his sobs lost in the cacophony. They're right on us. How did they know, he chokes. Shut it, boy, snarls a chief, clapping his helmet. But eyes turn to Hahn, huddled by the intercom, his superstition hardening to accusation. Your damn radio, mutters a torpedo hand, fingers white on his wrench. Every time we sing, the wolves come running. Hahn recoils, crossing arms like a shield. Not me, the orders. Dönitz's leash. But guilt coils, his key, his pulse, summoning this storm. Renner shoots him a glare, silence your poison, then bellows, all stop, go to ultra-quiet. Propellers still, the boat hangs inert, a steel leaf in the current. The pings probe, crack, crack, closer now, the destroyers circling methodical, their screws a dirge overhead. In the wardroom, crammed with off-watch men, paranoia seeds. U-515 last month, transmit then poof, whispers one, voice pitched low. Allies got ears now better than ours, or ghosts in the wire. Nods ripple, a crucifix surfaces from a pocket, kissed furtive. Renner, overhearing via the 1MC, feels the fracture. Faith and silence cracking under the weight of evidence. 8 minutes, from ether to echo. Coincidence? Or a hunter that hears the unhearable? The barrage walks closer. A charge brackets them. 20 meters astern, rivets pop like gunfire. A bulkhead buckles inward with a screech. Water surges ankle deep, cold as judgment. Damage report, Renner demands. Motor room taking green sea, pumps at capacity, crackles back. Casualties, Fritsch, broken arm. Renner logs it terse. Counterattack engaged. Escorts respond to Kurt's signal, impossible timing. His pen scratches steady, but thoughts betray. If silence is shield, why does speaking summon swords? Denial holds, Allied patrol lock, Enigma's minor slip, but the seed roots, procedure, the Admiral's iron law, now a siren's call. Hours grind, charges sporadic now, the destroyer's fuel conscious, circling wary. Dawn grays the ocean above, but U-1223 cowers at 250 feet, batteries ebbing, air turning sour with CO2's bite. The crew surface is shaken, bruises blooming, morale a raw wound. Hahn avoids eyes, coiling his key like a serpent. It was clean, he insists to Miller over rations. No reply, no trace. Miller snorts, hydrophone still ringing with phantom pings. Clean until it wasn't. How? Otto? How do they ride the signal like a hound on scent? Renner silences them with a look, but in his bunk that night, time blurred in the depths, he stares at the deckhead, rivets mocking like bars. Dönitz's doctrine, report, coordinate, conquer. Loyalty demands it, survival whispers otherwise. The boat limps south, leaks patched with prayers and plate, but the sea feels altered, smaller, watchful. Whispers spread, cursed radios. Renner quells it with drills, with tales of Prien's pluck, but denial phrase. The impossible has happened once. Patterns he knows from his engineering soul demand repetition. Across the Atlantic, in Fury's wardroom, Hargreaves toasts the near kill with lukewarm tea. One more burst, lads, and she's ours. His log notes the fix. Huff-Duff's triumph, 22 seconds to triangulation, 8 minutes to contact. Nora Blake, back at Bletchley, logs the intercept. Another pin on the chart, another ghost in the machine. She wonders brief, did they feel it? The math closing in, but in U-1223's steel womb, fear stirs, raw, unnamed. The crew labors on, procedure their crucifix, but doubt dawns. The ocean no longer hides, it echoes. Every creak, every ping's memory, whispers of a war where silence isn't enough. They followed procedure, and procedure followed them to the grave. The compartment, a narrow throat between torpedo room and control, reeks of boiled cabbage and machine grease, the single bulb swinging lazy on its cord to cast jittery shadows. It's evening by the chronometer, 18 hours, but time aboard is a tyrant without sun, marked only by ration bells and the boat's ceaseless sway. The crew hunches over fold-down tables, spoons scraping enamel bowls in a rhythm as mechanical as the diesels. Black bread, hard as shale, is doled by the chief steward. Coffee, a terry brew from yesterday's grounds, sloshes in dented mugs. Laughter is scarce now, rationed like the air. Forced guffaws over a dog-eared deck of cards, tales retold until threadbare. Oberleutnant Karl Renner sits apart, at the officer's end of the table, his logbook open like an accusation. The near miss of April 28th lingers. Hull patches gleam wet under the light, a constant reminder of the destroyer's mathematical wrath. 8 minutes from signal to screw beats, impossible, yet etched in the deck logs of Fury and her sisters, though Renner knows only the echo. He sips his coffee, bitter as regret, eyes tracing the grease pencil track. South now, grid BE-41, skirting the Grand Banks' fog-shrouded traps. Fuel at 55%, torpedoes 8 remaining, morale unlogged, a plummeting gauge. The hatch to the radio shack hisses open, and Otto Hahn enters, tray in hand, his face a pallor deeper than the boat's electric shadows. He slides onto a bench beside Miller, the hydrophone man, whose ears still ring with phantom pings. The mess falls to half quiet, heads turning subtle as scopes. Hahn's been sequestered since the attack. Renner's order, monitor only, no transmits without clearance. But BDU's silence is a void, and voids breed ghosts. News from the pack? Ventures a torpedo mate, Klaus Weber, his voice pitched low, scarred knuckles white on his spoon. Weber's a Berliner, broad as the boat is long, with tattoos of mermaids faded from salt. Last patrol, he lost a cousin on U-515, sunk off the Azores, her final curt signal a requiem. Hahn hesitates, fork midway to mouth, his headphones looped around his neck like a scapular seem heavier. U-226, she's overdue, he says finally, the words dropping like lead shot. Signaled position May 2nd, grid AF-19, 2 kills. Then nothing, BDU's querying the group. Murmurs swell, a tide against bulkheads. Like 384, mutters another, a diesel mechanic named Lang, his hands black with unshiftable oil. Transmits it for 400, depth charged by noon. Coincidence? His laugh is a bark, joyless. The pattern once dismissed as allied dice now weaves a noose. Boats that speak, boats that vanish. U-442 off Portugal, March. U-68 in the mid-Atlantic, April. Each a burst transmission, each a hunter-killer's prompt arrival. Whispers call it der Fluch des Funkens, the curse of the spark, radios bewitched, Enigma's gods turned vengeful. Renner looks up sharp, his voice cutting the haze like a periscope shear. Enough fairy tales. BDU's losses are weather, escorts blind luck. We hold discipline, that's our edge. But his words land flat, echoing the doctrine's fray. Duty wars in him. Loyalty to Dönitz's iron web, the Admiral's broadcasts from Lorient crackling with resolve. The Wolfpack endures. Report. Attack. Report. Centralized control, the Kriegsmarine's spine demands the pulse. Positions plotted, threats shared, wolfpacks converged. Without it, anarchy, boats adrift, convoys unscathed. Yet survival screams otherwise. Silence as salvation, the sea's old covenant. The meal dissolves into knots, engineers debating battery drain, watch officers plotting evasion curls. Hahn picks at his cabbage, eyes downcast. My key, my curse, superstition. Once his private fog, now communal. Crosses traced before meals. Prayers to St. Michael murmured in the heads. Miller leans close, voice a conspiratorial rumble. It's the wires, Otto. Something in the ether now. Alleys with ears like barnacles clinging to every dash. Hahn nods, throat tight. Or the sea's angry. We poke her too often, she bites back. But deeper, logic gnaws, 8 minutes. Physics, not phantoms. How does a signal, brief as a blink, summon destroyers from the void? He thinks of his village chapel. Bells tolling Sunday, sound carrying miles on still air. Here the ocean amplifies, betrays. The concrete bunker hums with teletype clatter and the low growl of generators. Maps wallpapering the ops room in crimson overlays. Convoy tracks blue-veined, U-boat positions red thorns pricking the Atlantic's hide. Admiral Karl Dönitz, 52, paces before the plot table, his greatcoat unbuttoned against the fug of cigarette smoke and sweat. The Grey Wolf himself, architect of the U-boat armada, face gaunt from 18-hour vigils at eyes burning with a fanatic's clarity. Losses mount. May's toll already 12 boats, the highest yet he clings to the creed, numbers, coordination, unyielding will. His staff officers hover, pencils poised, a colonel from OKM Berlin, telegrams in hand, radio experts charting signal densities. U-1223's last fix, BE-41, Dönitz snaps, jabbing a pin. No reply to my query, and 226 overdue. What's the ether say? A lieutenant, young and precise, consults his log. Intercepts minimal, Admiral, but patterns. Boats transmitting Kurzsignale face 40% higher engagement. Allies reacting preternaturally. Dönitz wheels, voice a lash. Preternaturally? Bah, it's Enigma strain, or DF fixes on long bursts. Titan protocols, no transmits under duress, but we cannot go dark. The Führer demands tonnage. Without reports, no wolf packs, no war. He turns to the map, fingers tracing the choke points. Gibraltar, the Denmark Strait. The doctrine his life's forge bends but does not break. Centralized control won the first years. Hundreds of thousands sunk. Britain starved. Now it chokes the noose he wrought. They must speak, he thinks, or we are blind. Renner pores over dispatches by flashlight, the beam a scalpel on yellowed paper. BDU's latest, heightened Allied air cover. Radio discipline paramount. U-384 confirmed lost. Escorts on site within quarter hour of signal. Quarter hour, worse than their 8 minutes. Renner's mind, trained in hydrodynamics at the Berlin Institute. Rebels, signals propagate at light speed, but triangulation demands stations, vectors, time. Impossible unless a net. Antennas blanketing the approaches, goniometers spinning bearings like compass roses from hell. Huff-Duff, the Piabus would whisper post-war, but here it's Spectre, the ghost network, unseen, unerring. A knock, soft, insistent. Hahn enters, cap in hand, eyes shadowed. Herr Kalu, permission to speak? Renner gestures to the bunk opposite, folding the dispatch. Out with it, Hahn. The crew's mood sours like our coffee. Hahn perches, fingers twisting his cap brim. It's the radio, sir. Not just 226. U-953 reported yesterday. Transmitted weather data, then escorts from nowhere. Crew swears the ping started mid-send, and the men, they're calling it cursed. Say my key's hexed, that Sankt Nepomuk's turned his back. Renner leans forward, elbows on knees, the boats sway, sinking their breaths. Superstition's a leak we can't patch, Otto, but the pattern, I see it too. Admission costs him, loyalties fracture, but survival's math is inexorable. Duty pulls, report the grid, join the pack forming off Newfoundland, claim kills for the Reich. Disobey and disgrace, court-martial in Kiel, whispers of cowardice. Dönitz's wolves don't howl alone, Hahn's voice drops to a plea. Then what, sir? We ghost on, silent as sin. BU will mark us lost, send others to die blind. Renner stares at the bulkhead, rivets a constellation of constraints. Struggles core, Man versus mandate. He recalls his father's farm in Silesia, orders from the manor, obedience the harvest. Here the crop is death. We transmit once more, tonight, brief as breath, position only, no details, then silence till contact forces our hand. Compromise, a tightrope over abyss. Hahn nods, relief warring with dread, and slips out. The boat runs surfaced, diesels muffled by fog, the bridge watch scanning horizons empty as prayers. Below, Hahn keys the burst. 15 seconds, encrypted whisper into the night. B-41, proceeding south. Request orders. The transmitter warms, pulses fade. Static reclaims the shack, but Hahn lingers, ear to receiver, waiting for the curse's cough. Paranoia metastasizes. In the torpedo room, Weber leads a hushed rite. Salt from the galley scattered on the deck plates, murmurs to Poseidon borrowed from captured British mags. For the drowned, he intones, and those soon to join. Long joins, crossing himself reverse, Catholic guilt and Protestant steel. Miller, ever the listener, swears he hears it first. Screws faint bearing east. Contacts, 3 blades, destroyers again? Alarms wail, dive klaxon piercing the fog. Renner bolts from his bunk, half-dressed, heart slamming. How soon after? He demands, yanking on boots. 4 minutes, Hahn stammers from the intercom, voice breaking. The send was clean. Dive, hard. The boat plunges, water roaring over the saddle tanks, but the pings follow, crack, crack, closer, insistent. Depth charges bloom distant, geysers unseen but felt in the hull's tremor. The crew braces, faces masks of accusation, eyes on Hahn, on Renner, on the doctrine that damns them. This attack fades quicker, escorts low on charges, fuel calling them home. But the scar deepens, drills turn frantic, silence absolute, no jests, no songs, just the boat's creak and the sea's mock lullaby. Renner logs it terse. Second intercept post-transmit. Timing anomalous. Recommend BDU review radio protocols. But he knows. Recommendations die in channels. Doctrine endures. Days blur. May 10th, a freighter sighted, stalked silent, torpedoed without report, kill 9, unheralded. The crew cheers hollow, Weber toasting to the ghosts we don't call. Hahn prays in corners, key locked in a drawer like a gin's bottle. Renner wrestles alone, duty's chain, survival's knife. Transmit, and invite the noose, silence, and betray the pack. Dönitz's voice echoes in dispatches, endure, the tide turns, but tides, Renner knows, drown the faithful. In the wardroom, under a single red lamp, he sketches alternatives. Burst relays via neutrals, acoustic buoys for position drops. Engineering's dream, war's luxury. Loyalty or logic? The boat presses on grid by grid, the ocean shrinking to a cage. Paranoia binds them tighter than hatches. Every static crack a summons, every silence a reprieve bought dear. The cursed radios, Hahn's hex, the crew's hymn, become totem, the war's new god, appease it or perish. Renner stares at his reflection in a polished valve, eyes hollow, resolve cracking. We were wolves, now prey to our own howl. Duty demands the signal, survival the cut. The struggle peaks, man adrift between oath and ocean where every choice echoes the grave. To disobey meant disgrace, to obey meant death. The boat drifts at periscope depth, her hull a reluctant buoy in the swell of grid CF-52, 600 miles east of St. John's, where the fog banks off Newfoundland swallow convoys whole. Batteries groan at 30 cent. Electric drives whisper now a labored rasp, forcing surfaced runs that risk the dawn patrols. The air is a toxin, CO2 thick, laced with the sour reek of unscrubbed breath, diesel vapors, and the metallic bite of fear that coats the tongue like rust. Red lanterns bleed crimson across consoles, turning dials to wounds, faces to specters. 2 weeks of ghosting. No transmits since the second brush with Fury's kin, kills unclaimed. 2 freighters stalked and struck in silence, their tonnage a secret swallowed by the sea. Morale phrased to threads, rations halved, beards ungroomed, eyes hollowed by the vigil that devours sleep. Oberleutnant Karl Renner hunches at the chart table, his frame gaunt under the oilskin, fingers tracing faded lines where wolf-pack shadows should converge. At 29, he is a husk of the methodical wolf who sailed from Lorient, haunted now by the ledger's voids. U-226 confirmed sunk, her last signal a epitaph. U-953 limping home, her CO ranting of invisible hounds in the after-action. BDU's dispatches, scavenge from faint intercepts, scream urgency. Converge on HX-237. Report position immediate. Führer demands Atlantic closed. Duty's vice tightens. Disobey and the pack hunts blind. The Reich starves. Obey and the curse claims another. Renner's eyes once slate-sharp, dull with the calculus. Loyalty's math yields zero sum. One pulse, he decides, the engineer's compromise. Brief as a heartbeat, then dark forever. He rises, steadying against the boat's roll, and keys the 1MC. All hands prepare for Kurt's signal, surfacing in 2. Hahn, stand by. The intercom hisses acknowledgement, but the control room stirs uneasy. Glances dart, hands clench on depth wheels. Miller at hydrophones mutters a word, nichts hören, nichts sehen, his ears pricked for the sea's betrayal. The klaxon wails subdued, valves cycle with hydraulic sighs, and U-1223 breaches the surface, her conning tower parting fog like a scalpel through flesh. Diesels cough awake, a guttural prayer against the night, exhaust plumes dissipating into the mist. On the bridge, Renner scans the void, binoculars sweeping horizons veiled in gray. No stars, the fog a merciful shroud, muffling even the waves' murmur. Below, in the radio shack's crimson glow, Otto Hahn primes the set. Transmitter humming low, Morse key polished to a talisman, Enigma rotor whirring its encrypted veil. At 22 he is spectral, cheeks sunken, fingers trembling as they dance the cipher. CF-52, fuel critical, 2 kills unreported. Request immediate rendezvous. 17 seconds, dots sharp as accusations, dashes lingering like regrets. He hits send, the antenna's pulse a fleeting spark arcing into the ether, gone before the fog can claim it. Static floods back, a white roar blending with the diesel's thrum, the ocean's lap against the hull. Hahn crosses himself, whispering to the patron of the drowned, let it be swallowed, let it be lost. Clean send, he reports over intercom, voice a thread. But his gut twists, superstition's knot, logic's noose. The pattern is ironclad now, transmit, and the hounds bay within the hour. Not curse, he thinks, but chains. Our voice, their map. The ops room buzzes with electric life. Teleprinters chattering like impatient specters, wall charts alive with pins and strings, the air crisp with pine from open windows overlooking the runways where Catalinas squat like brooding geese. It's 23:45 local, 5 hours behind the boat's meridian, but the war's clock ticks universal. Lieutenant Nora Blake stands at the triangulation board, her WRNS uniform crisp despite the midnight oil, auburn hair escaping its pins in defiant curls. At 26, she is the network's quiet fulcrum. Bearings from Ventnor and Wick feeding her console via submarine cable, mobile fixes from Shearwater's Corvette patching in Bucky. The Huff-Duff array, loop antennas perched on the cliffside, goniometers spinning in oiled precision, turns the fog-bound coast into a listener's lair. Her scope flares, a blip, rhythmic Morse's staccato piercing the static veil. Contact, she announces, voice calm as a leveled theodolite. Bearing 142 true, strength 4. Kurt signal signature 17 seconds. Pencil flies. Grid lines intersect, azimuth locked to 1.5 degrees. Across the Atlantic, Ventnor's feed concurs, bearing 247 from their mast while Wick's northern ear catches 312. The mobile off Halifax chimes in. 289, error negligible. Nora plots the triangle, lines converging on CF-52, a scalene fatal to steelfish 200 miles offshore. Triangulation complete, she logs, pinning the fix with a red flag. U-boat surfaced, vulnerable. Alert Starling Group, position precise to 3 miles. The room stirs. A RCF squadron leader relays to the teleprinter, vectors spooling to Walker-class destroyers patrolling convoy screen. Hargreaves, her Bletchley counterpart, visiting for cross-training, nods approval, pipe clenched. 17 seconds to kill warrant. Watts ghost strikes again. Nora's hand pauses on the chart, the pin's shadow falling across the grid like a torpedo track. 17 souls, maybe more. Their captain, plotting the same fog we pierce. No faces, only pulses. But the math humanizes. A brief report, a plea for packmates, now a beacon. Guilt flickers, brief as the signal, knowledge as weapon. Cleaner than bayonets, crueler than bombs. She shakes it off, Hood's memory, her brother's echo, and keys the alert. Immediate vector 42 to 15 and Hidwin 30 boat. Surface contact confirmed. HMS Starling, lead of the 2nd Escort Group, slices the mist at 25 knots, her pennant snapping wet in the chill. Commander Frederick John Walker. Johnny to his lads, scourge of the pack, stands bridge-winged, duffel coat lashed against spray, eyes squinting into the gray. At 54 he is the Allies' U-boat nemesis. Slight, bespectacled, with a ferret's cunning and a father's sorrow for the sea's toll. The fix crackles in from Gander, 17 seconds old, but the Ghost Network's web ensures freshness. Triangulation real-time, destroyers vectored like hounds on leash. Starling to group, close on 142, pattern delta, Walker orders, voice reedy but iron. His sisters, wild goose, wren, woodpecker, fan out, screws churning foam, Aztec domes pulsing below. Huff-Duff masts swivel, confirming the bearing, the U-boat's dying echo still warm in the loops. They're close. Smell the diesel? Walker murmurs to his navigating officer. The fog aids now, allied cloaks in the Kriegsmarine's shroud. Below decks, Aztec ratings plot the echo. Strong return, 4,000 yards, maneuvering erratic. Starling has paint, the operator sings out. Diving, props cavitating. Walker nods, the hunter's thrill tempered by wariness. 28 boats this year, his tally. Each a grave, each a convoy saved. Hedgehogs forward, depth charges shallow pattern. Bring her up screaming. The throwers whump, 24 projectiles hissing into the mist, splashes lost in fog. Seconds stretch, then muffled thunder, boom boom boom, the sea erupting in gouts of white, shockwaves rippling the surface like vengeful breaths. The first ping strikes 4 minutes post-send, crack, a sonic blade through the hull, freezing the blood. Renner, mid-dive order, whirls to Miller. Contacts, bearing 140, 4 screws, heavy escorts. Chaos ignites, alarms shriek, red lights pulsing like arterial spray. Battle stations, rig for depth charge, dive, dive! Renner's roar barely cuts the din, men tumbling from bunks, half-clad, grabbing helmets and prayers. The boat plunges, ballast flooding in urgent gurgles, but the pings multiply. Crack, crack, crack. The destroyer's Aztec blooming her outline in merciless sound. Compressed air vents scream, planes bite hard, but it's late. The hedgehogs find water astern, their detonations a rolling peal that shudders the frame. They're on the signal, like lightning. Hahn bursts from his shack, face slick with sweat, eyes wild as a cornered fox. The radio still hums, receiver crackling with static that mocks their Morse. Renner grabs his collar, shaking. Cut it. Power down, now. Hahn nods, scrambling back, fingers fumbling the master switch. But the ether betrays. Residual pulse, a ghost echo from the antenna, feeding the net one last bearing. He yanks the breaker, click silencing the set, the hum dying to a whine, dials fading black. Too late, his mind screams. The thread's pulled. Superstition shatters to terror, not curse, but comprehension, the Allies' ears vast as the ocean, hearing what gods ignore. Depth charges walk the grid with Walker's precision. First pattern shallow, 50 feet. Whump whump, bracketing 100 meters off, hull flexing like a bellows, lights shattering in cascades of glass. Rivets pop like gunfire, a seam in the pressure hull weeping brine. Water surges knee-deep in the bilges, cold as absolution, pumps whining futile. Counterflood forward, steady on depth 300. Renner bellows, braced at the ladder, blood trickling from a gash on his brow where a gauge shattered. The crew fractures. Weber in the torpedo room, wrestling a jammed tube, cursing saints in Berlin gutturals. Langed in motors, sparks flying as a busbar shorts, his screams lost in the roar. Fritsch, arms still splinted from the last dance, huddles fetal, sobbing moody. Miller clutches his cans, hydrophones relaying the noose. Screws circling, pings painting, charges primed. They're triangulating, math not luck. How do they? A direct hit amidships. Boom, the world inverts. The boat lurches, bulkheads buckling with tortured shrieks, a girder collapsing in the engine room, crushing Langy's legs in red ruin. Oil erupts from tanks, black and viscous, mingling with seawater in a choking slurry. Lights fail in cascades, plunging compartments to Stygian black, emergency lanterns flickering like dying stars. Renner tastes copper, blood from bitten tongue, his mind a whirlwind. 17 seconds. Vectors from fog, the old world's end. Courage avails nothing, physics claims all. All stop, ultra quiet, he gasps, but the order drowns in anarchy. Screams, gurgles, the sea's ingress a hungry slurp. Hahn, adrift in the control room now, crawls to Renner, clutching a rag to a scalp wound. I cut it, Herculu. Power's dead, but they heard, they always hear. His voice breaks, the superstitious boy yielding to the man who knows. Transmissions, doctrine's breath, now asphyxiation. The barrage crescendos, Walker's pattern walks inexorable, shallow to deep, 100 to 300 feet, charges blooming in geometric fury. A near miss forward, the bow crumples, torpedo tubes crumpling like foil. Weber's shout cut mid-curse, pressure spikes, gauges redlining, hull protesting with continental groans. At 250 feet, the sea's claw tightens, 400 psi, then 450, plates yielding millimeter by millimeter. Renner hauls Hahn to the conning ladder, the last redoubt. Abandon if we blow, but we don't, hold. His eyes meet the radioman's, apology unspoken, loyalties pyre. Brave men, taught to sing, now silenced. The final charge brackets true. Whump, dead center. The pressure hull splits amidships with an apocalyptic crack. Steel tearing like parchment, the ocean roaring in. Implosion, a blink of vacuum, the sea reclaiming in instantaneous fury. Bulkheads cave, air compresses to thunder, bodies pulped in the crush. Renner's last thought, we hid from eyes, not ears, extinguished as the bow folds, the stern jackknifes, U-1223 folding into the abyss like a prayer unanswered. Bubbles boil surfaceward, debris, logs, caps, a Morse key glinting scattered in the fog. Silence descends, profounder than the blasts. Starling circles the oil slick, sonarman probing the void. No ping, no thrum. Walker logs it terse, U-boat destroyed. Huff-Duff fix confirmed. Tonnage saved, incalculable. Nora, back at Gander, charts the kill. Another pin, another ghost. The fog lifts slow, revealing the sea's indifferent face. Wreckage bobbing, a life vest, the logbook's pages dissolving to ink. Life vest, the logbook's pages dissolving to ink. The fog lingers like a mourner's veil, thinning to gossamer as the sun's first pallor bleeds across the horizon. A cold, indifferent gold that gilds the oil slicks and debris bobbing on the swell. HMS Starling circles slow, her screws churning a froth that scatters flotsam. A cork life vest, sodden and empty, shattered bakelite from a shattered world, pages from a logbook curling like dying leaves in the current. Commander Frederick John Walker stands at the rail, pipe unlit between his teeth, binoculars sweeping the wreckage field. At 54, the weight of 29 kills presses on him, not triumph, but a ledger of absences. 29 boats, 1,000 men, their voices silenced in the sea's vast archive. Mark it sunk, he orders, voice reedy with fatigue. No survivors, God rest 'em. The log entry is terse. U-1223 destroyed 0518Z. Huff-Duff fix. Convoy HX-237 secured. Below decks, the ASTIC team replays the implosion's ghost. A hollow thunder on the trace. The ocean's sigh as it swallows steel. In Gander's plot room, Lieutenant Nora Blake charts the kill with mechanical precision. Red pin in CF-52, strings taut from Ventnor. Wick, Halifax. The teleprinter clacks finality. Contact lost. No further signals. She steps back, the chart a tapestry of threads, hundreds now, each a submarine's fatal whisper triangulated to doom. 17 seconds. That's all it took, the Morse pulse from U-1223 blooming on her scope like a heartbeat under glass. Nora's hands, steady on the goniometer, tremble now an afterthought, tracing the pin's shadow. Who were you? She wonders, the math yielding no faces, only vectors, bearings, the cold arithmetic of survival. Guilt is her private tide, ebbing in the small hours. The fragments intercepted over months. Grüße and die Liebste tucked in a weather report, a father's query for his boy's health. Now erased, in the crush. Clean work, Hargreaves insists, clapping her shoulder over tea. Saves tenfold. But cleanliness is a lie. Knowledge wounds deeper than shrapnel. The faceless men she condemned haunting her billet, like static on a dead set. The reading room smells of aged paper and linseed oil, oak shelves groaning under the weight of declassified ghosts, Admiralty files unbound, yellowed dispatches spilling from folders like autumn leaves. A historian, bespectacled and pipe-puffing, pores over a salvaged logbook, U-1223's Kriegstagebuch, fished from the wreck by trawlers months after the war's end, its pages bloated with brine but ink defiant. Oberleutnant Karl Renner's script, precise as an engineer's blueprint, chronicles the unraveling. Grids plotted, kills tallied in silence, the creeping dread of the whispering enemy. The final entry, scrawled in haste amid the barrage's prelude. Transmitted per doctrine. Response immediate. 4 minutes to pings. The sea hears what eyes cannot. We hid from what we could see, not from what could hear. The historian pauses, pipe forgotten, the words a requiem for an era. Courage is collision with comprehension, where bravery's roar drowned in the hum of loops and scopes. Post-war tallies paint the toll in stark numerals. Of 1,170 U-boats commissioned, 785 lost, 28,000 men to the deep, the generation's steel coffins. Huff-Duff claims 24%, direct attributions from BDU decrypts and Admiralty cross-checks. 188 boats nailed by the Ghost Network's net, their bursts betraying positions to within miles. Watts wizardry, scaled from radar's cradle to a web of 40 shore stations and 300 shipboard sets, turned the Atlantic into a panopticon. Triangulation's triangle, 3 bearings, seconds to fix, vectored escorts and aircraft with surgical grace. Starling's May rampage, 16 kills in 10 days. Sunderland's from Reykjavik, Lee lights piercing the night to bomb surface transmitters. Dönitz's doctrine, once the Wolfpack's fang, became its fetter. Centralized control demanding reports, each a flare for the hunters. In Lorient's bunkers, the Admiral raged at the infernal direction finders, ordering antenna mods, shorter bursts, dummy signals, but physics prevailed. By June 43, the tide turned. U-boat sinkings outpaced launches, convoys unscathed, the Reich's lifeline severed not by torpedoes but by the sin of speaking. The historian closes the log, Renner's words lingering like smoke. Brilliant, methodical, loyal to a lie. Interviews with survivors, U-505's captured crew, spilling secrets in Maine's interrogation rooms, reveal the psychological fracture. Paranoia in the ether, radios smashed in fits, commanders adrift between oath and oblivion. Otto Hahn's fate, pieced from fragmentary records, a body never found but his key, brass tarnished, catalogued beside the log, a talisman of the cursed voice. Renner, if he breathed the implosion's end, joins the anonymous. No grave marker, no widow's pension, just the sea's indifferent roll. The room is modest, lace curtains filtering autumn light, a wireless on the mantel tuned low to the BBC's post-war murmur, trials in Nuremberg, ration lifts, the world's awkward thaw. Nora Blake, now 29, unmarried and unmoored, sits at a writing desk cluttered with ledgers. Not Admiralty charts, but diaries unbound, her hand tracing the war's echo. Civilian now, a librarian in Norwich, she shelves histories she helped write, volumes on radar's triumph, codebreaker's glory, but the pages skip the human cost, the guilt that gnaws like untreated rust. She unfolds a letter, yellowed, from her brother, pre-hood, the sea listens, Nor. But does it forgive? No. The scope's green flicker haunts her dreams, pulses resolving to positions, positions to pings, pings to crushes. U-1223 was the pivot, the 17th second signal that broke her. A captain, she imagines, methodical, haunted by patterns he couldn't name. Men she never saw, their breaths in steel, erased by her bearing, 142 true, strength 4. Nora rises, crossing to the window where Norfolk's fens stretch flat and fogged, a landlocked echo of the Atlantic. She thinks of the others, Elsie Thorne, her Wick counterpart, wed now with twins, the war a parlor anecdote. Hargreaves, promoted to captain, lecturing at Greenwich on the invisible victory. But Nora carries the weight, knowledge as assassin, math's moral void. Post-war briefings revealed the toll, 24%, a statistic that multiplies to faces in the quiet. Radiomen like Hahn, fingers on keys that summon their pyre. Commanders like Renner, loyal to doctrine's grave. We hunted with ears, she writes in her diary, pen scratching deliberate but heard only fragments, pleas, not people. Guilt manifests in small rebellions. Anonymous donations to German war widows' funds slipped through Red Cross channels, letters to Watson Watt, unsigned, querying if progress must orphan mercy. A knock, her landlady with tea. Nora tucks the diary, smiles mechanical. The fog's lifting, the woman says, peering out. Nora nods but sees the North Atlantic. Debris fields under dawn, the sea's archive swelling. They never saw us, she thinks, we never saw them. Only the signals bridged, once fatally. Dönitz, grayed and gaunt in a civilian suit, stands before a projector's beam, grainy footage flickering, U-boats gliding from pens, wolfpacks dispersing into mist. Acquitted at Nuremberg but unabsolved, he annotates his memoirs, 10 Jahre und 20 Tage, the Wolf's Testament, dwelling on the turning, May 43, the month the sea turned foe. The direction finders he dictates to a stenographer, voice a rasp of old salt, were the war's unseen dagger. Our reports, vital as blood, became poison. Figures scroll. 434,000 tons sunk in March, 34,000 by May's end. Huff-Duff's shadow, intercepts spiking, boats ghosting silent, only to starve uncoordinated. Renner's log, quoted in footnotes, becomes cautionary, hid from sight, not sound. Dönitz pauses the reel, the screen's ghosts frozen. My wolves, he thinks, devoured by their own howl. Legacy bitter. The U-boat arm, once Reich's hope, reduced to museum hulls in Bremerhaven, tours whispering of hubris. Waves lap the gray hull of U-505, moored eternal, her conning tower scarred by the war's graffiti. Bullet pucks, rust blooms. Tourists murmur, children point at the periscope's gleam. Beneath, in the engine room's echo, a guide recounts the myth's death. Stealth slain by science, the ocean's sanctuary turns sieve. Renner's words, etched on a plaque from the salvaged log, catch the light. We hid from what we could see, not from what could hear. The final moral, unspoken but etched in every post-war chart. Huff-Duff didn't just find submarines, it found the end of an era. Courage, unyielding, bowed to comprehension, the old world's faith adrift in physics' tide. Nora Blake in her Norwich sunset burns her diaries, flames curling the pages, signals to ash. Forgive the hearing, she whispers to the smoke, if not the herd. The sea, from Kiel to Norfolk, rolls on. Witness, executioner, archive of the invisible war. Technology decided before battles began. Not with thunder, but with the hum of unseen ears. The bravest died trusting what they were taught. No code outlasted the listen. They never saw the enemy. They only heard him. Once. If you believe technology decides wars before battles begin, subscribe for more untold Woe-2 revelations.